Hello, everybody, and welcome to Ian Gamesmith. I am the Ian of Gamesmithing. We are here tonight with Session 2 of Games by Design, featuring Iron Edda Accelerated, which is an awesome new Fate Accelerated game. Just came out 2 weeks ago. It is super good, and we have the designer here running the game for us tonight, which is a huge treat. So, Tracy, why don't you introduce yourself and let us know what you're up to right now. Nice. That's fantastic. Awesome, good deal. And then playing along with us tonight, we have two lovely featured guests. We have Denicia and Adira. Denicia, would you like to introduce yourself first? Good deal. Yeah, we have that up on the screen. Those are all our Twitter handles if you are like to give a follow. And Adira, please introduce yourself as well. Lovely. Good deal. Good deal. Yeah, and I just want to make a couple of quick announcements. So since we had to miss last week with the Iron Edda, this is session 2, and we're going to do one more session next week on the 28th to be able to round it out, make sure we get our full little mini campaign in. So please stop in and catch that as well. And then the other thing that I wanted to announce is that I did a little poll on Twitter to see. I'm really a huge fan of the Uncaged anthology. I don't know if anybody's caught this adventure collection that came out recently. It's really, really great. It's all female and non-binary authors writing D&D adventures about classically female monsters and kind of like playing with the tropes and expectations a little bit. And there's some really, really great stuff. So I ran a poll on Twitter to see which one people wanted to see actually played out. And we are going to be doing The Weeping Woman, which is kind of a take on the La Llorona kind of Hispanic traditional story. And it's really good. I'm really excited to run it. It's going to be a good time. So I'll have more announcements coming up about that, but that will be coming not this Saturday, but next Saturday, the 30th. Yeah, and without further ado, I think I will toss it over to you, Tracy, to give us a quick rundown on where we were, and we can get this rolling. Okay. Thank you, X. I'll poke around.
is playing Lauren Hodson, who is a seer who has newly come to the mantle of seer, and whose trouble is that he is extremely self-conscious, which, makes for great things when you're a seer and have, the power of the fates at your hand or at your fingertips. Then Danacia is playing. Danacia, would you like to introduce your character?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let me get over to that screen.
Yeah.
I'm Ogetti Soditter. So I'm a rune scribe, and my sacred rune is a tattoo of Isa. So that's really cool. And so I'm kind of a protector of the skald hearth. So everything that has to do with making sure they're all safe and everything is kind of what I'm doing. Also working with Riina to fulfill our duty to our hold. And hopefully we're not having to get too much ass, but we might just have to.
Yes, and then Adira is playing Riina Willowbonded. Adira, would you go into greater detail about your character?
Yeah, so I'm playing Riina Willowbonded. Riina is not one of the regular citizens of Midgard, but is an envoy from Aevilheimr, here to help sort of move along the pact with Hel. So that way the seals of the Huntress Mother can be, broken. Riina... trouble is that she can only see her love through the ivy branches, and that's partly because Riina is bonded to the terrible, awesome, and ancient oak tree spirit Bazakhor, who is a big tree monster that she is and can summon.
I love Bazakhor so much. Playing Bazakhor is a lot of fun for me. So, Ian, if you would do me a favor and focus on slide number 2 for those who are watching at home, I will give you the rundown of what's going on in this holdfast and where we have come so far. So, there is a curse that is looming over the holdfast because there is a debt owed to the goddess Hel. Hel is the goddess of death, traditionally depicted as one half of her body being decayed and undead. The debt needs to be resolved somehow. And I think we altered this a little bit from what's on these notes, but the current Jarl is basically the one who needs to fulfill this debt. And as we established in fiction, as we'll get to, the Jarl needs to become Hel's high priestess in the world, which is kind of a big deal. As well, in a recent battle, the fields have run red. A young promising skald has been murdered, and it was discovered that our own Ogetti, who is the protector of the skalds, let this young skald die. The skald's name is Bronwyn, and Lurin, our seer, knows why this happened. But we as players and GM have not explored that yet, so that's a secret that is lingering. There are traders, Traders, from the Desert Brand who have come to the holdfast. They are carrying very strange metals and crafted goods. They're non-Euclidean weapons, and boy, do your eyes feel funny after looking at them. But they're in the holdfast, and those things are around and present. We did not really address those in session 1, but I'm sure they're going to come up in session 2, says the GM.
It's a safe bet, then.
Yeah, and then the elves have offered help in exchange for the humans fulfilling their deal to Hel. If this happens, the elven huntress mother, who is, by the way, the actual no-shit mother of Riina Willowbonded, will be freed from the sort of, I guess, tempering and imprisonment that she was in. Like, she was just too powerful. So the elves were like, hey goddess Hel, will you take her for us and like just tone her down a little bit? And Hel was like, yeah, sure, as long as these humans do this thing. And so there's this lovely multi-part deal that is supposed to happen that is centered around your holdfast. I am happy to do a quick recap of the previous session. If any of my three lovely players wish just to chime in or start with what happened to their characters, I am more than willing to let you have it, though. So what do you think?
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, you're on a roll. Keep rolling.
Okay, on a roll, keep rolling. So the session started off with Riina Willowbonded coming into the holdfast and seeking help from Lurin the Seer. Ian, if you would focus on slide 3 real quick.
Sure.
You can see that Lurin's trouble aspect, Lurin's, let me back all that up. Riina's group aspect is that Lurin is my political connection to the holdfast. So Lurin is the Seer. The Seer has the ear of the Jarl. The Seer can do all kinds of wiggity shit. So this is Riina's connection to the people. So Riina came upon Lurin's home, which is kind of Lurin's home and kind of also the blacksmith's home, and maybe Lurin has like overstayed his welcome, and we'll get to that.
Lurin feels super bad about it, but doesn't know what to do.
I mean, Lurin may be a millennial. It's fine. But Lurin also has this wonderful unhealing wound in his side that is the mark of a seer, right? We're talking Rand al'Thor circa books 7 through 10 of the Wheel of Time series kind of stuff. That's one of the things I immediately thought of, and I thought that might have been too far of a pull at the time, so I let it. Tonight is not that night. So
yeah, fair enough.
And so Lurin was sopping up like to try and gloss over this gently, the leavings of a continuously seeping wound from overnight. And Riina happened upon him and at his home and said, hey, I will take those from you, because her tree, Bazakhor, said, hey, that's life, and that's what I want, because Bazakhor's worldly desire is to hold living heat. So Riina then proceeded to go outside of Lurin's house and cradle the cloth up to her face ever so gently. And no blood was absorbed into her skin through completely arcane means. I don't know.
Not at all.
No, that didn't happen in this.
Weird. Couldn't do that.
No, that totally happened. And so that was all sort of unfolding and proceeding as Ogetti was outside of the Hall of the Skalds, or the Skaldic Hearth, I should say, and met with Yun, the head of the Clan of the Sparrows, the leader of the Skald's Hearth. And they had sort of like one of those heart-to-heart moments where Ogetti sort of revealed her deeper insecurities, and Yun, I think, was kind of like, okay, you need to do something about those insecurities because you have been nursing them for weeks or months now. Like, it's basically time to get on with your life. And if you want to know what to do, go see the seer. Because, the GM needed to get all the players together. So you went and did that, and you saw Riina outside of the seer's house, and Riina sort of left her blood-fueled reverie to enter the house with you, and you all began to discuss this entire set of situations that is going on when the Jarl showed up at the seer's home. Jarl Grunleaf wanted to find out what she should do, because she is faced with a very distinct choice. Jarl Grunleaf can either accept what hell is offering and become hell's high priestess, or not. If not, the curse of hell falls upon your holdfast, and the dead don't go where they're supposed to, so they just begin rising. If so, she can no longer be Jarl, because that is a big thing. Like, you can really only hold one mantle of power in Midgardian society. So the Jarl can never be a rune scribe can never be Jarl, a Jarl can never be the mouthpiece of a goddess in the world. And so that's really important to Jarl Grunleaf to hold on to that. The other thing that your runestones revealed to everybody in that scene, Lurin, was that basically you need to go and discuss with the elves what can be done about all of this, because the Jarl stormed out of your house. She said, "Fuck your reading," and she left. And that's where we ended the previous session, is with all of you kind of in the lurch there, with the Jarl, the person who is supposed to solve this problem by taking on the mantle of Hell's High Priestess, leaving.
Yeah, and it's tonight, right?
Yep, there is a big old meet tonight between the elves and all the envoys from the human settlement, because everyone has some skin in this game, right?
Yep.
The elves want their Mother Huntress back. To get that, there needs to be someone who already has power. This is sort of like the key of this, to take on Hell's mantle. It cannot just be, Barney the shield bearer over there to take on Hell's mantle. It has to be someone who already has status in the eyes of the holdfast. That is very important for the deal for Hell to go through. So that's where we left off. With all of you in Lurin's home, looking at the door, probably sort of like swinging in with the impact of Jarl Grunleaf having like just kicked it open.
Damn, girl.
Yeah, and that sort of hanging in the breeze. So you have Jarl Grunleaf's abrupt exit. You have the runes saying you should go and talk to the elves, and you have your own personal agendas that all feed into all of this. So I ask you, upon the Jarl's exit from Lurin's home, what do you do?
Pet a kitty.
Yeah, sorry, I got him out of the way.
That may be the best answer.
It's not the right one, but it's the best one.
Yes.
Yeah, I think Lurin will go over to the hearth and see if the stool that the Jarl kicked in is salvageable or not.
At this point in time, how do you try and get like burned wood out of your hearth? Like, what physically do you do?
Right, if there was still like a leg or something that was sticking out that was unburned, he'd probably kind of just catch the tip of it with his toe and kind of try and pull it out and see how structurally sound the thing was.
So you pull it out, and it mostly crumbles as you pull it out, because supernatural fire does not burn in the way that normal fire does, and you saw some runes being burned into this. And as you sort of kick it out of the flame, you realize two things. One, your stool is toast. I'm sorry, the only stool that you possessed is now gone. And two, the rune that was sort of charred into the wood is the rune of Ihwaz, which is tree, life, and growth, which is very much connected to the elves and the Willowbonded, who is currently watching all of this. But as you pull it out, it is canted to the side, which means that it's occluded. So whenever you cast the runes appear in one of three states: either straight up and down, meaning their meaning is pure and understood; their merc stave, which means that it is reversed somehow, and it means the opposite of what it should mean; or it is canted in some way off of its original orientation, but is not quite merc stave, and that means it's occluded. So things have become cloudy in regards to the elves. If you were to choose to interpret you pulling this piece of burned wood out of the fire as an actual rune that you had cast.
Well, part of the reason that Lauren was doing that was to see if the rune would survive coming out and still be readable. So
yeah, it for better or worse it is. Okay. But it is not oriented the way that you originally saw it. In your original rune casting, Ehwaz was upright. It was tree, life, growth, no question. Go talk to the elves. After the Jarl had stormed out, the rune that you see, and we'll say in a moment of like cinematic poetic wonderfulness, that when you pull it out, that piece of wood on the burned stool actually covers the Ehwaz rune from your original casting on the floor, but the other 3 runes are still totally visible.
Nice.
So like the actions that have been taken since your casting have already occluded this rune.
Okay. Well, he'll set about stamping out whatever, smoldering bits are still on the stool. And as he's saying that, he'll say, well, the direct path is not open. I think we will need to speak to your people after all, Riina.
Yeah, that didn't seem to kind of go the way I thought it was going to go.
As the GM, how did you think it was going to go?
I thought we'd maybe be able to suss out a little bit more about maybe why she doesn't want to give up her power, or have a little bit more of a discussion. But it's exciting the way it did happen.
So Riina, these humans, one with distinct access to power, one that I believe, let me just double check our notes here. You've worked with Ogetti before. You know that she's sort of on the side of fulfilling this bargain. So you're in a room with a couple of allies, though not elven allies, and the elves are, I think, reclusive is the word humans would use. But you simply move through life along your strands of fate in different ways. So what is then the procedure that you would have as an envoy to the human people for bringing these 2 humans to your people?
Well, I think Riina would first need to do a little bit of just a quick sort of little like once over inspection.
Okay.
This sort of like elf equivalent of stand on one foot, pat your and rub your belly.
This feels kind of like if you played Apocalypse World, this feels kind of like the read a person. Like, are you just trying to sort of get a bead on who they are?
Yeah, but more a bead on how they react.
Okay. So you do a very elven thing, is what you're saying. Yeah.
That's Riina's plan is more to ask them to do a very elven thing.
Okay, cool. So, if I can ask you for some specificity in this, sure. What is the thing that you do? And then what is the subsequent reaction that you want them to have?
So, Riina doesn't want them to be too quick to immediately listening to what she has to tell them. Like, if you say to somebody, like, quick, do this thing with your patting your head and rubbing your belly, like, that just shows that they're just, like, going to leap immediately. Whereas Riina wants to sort of like confirm that these are people who will like ask questions about the culture as opposed to sort of jumping into it, but also are still people who, once they've asked the questions, will still do it.
Okay. So Ogetti and Lurin, I will leave this to you as players. If you feel strongly enough about your character's stance towards elven things, you can just respond as your character would.
Okay.
If you as a player are uncertain about where your character lies, I would ask you what approach you use to respond to Riina, and then we'll see what the dice say. So, Ogetti, you have been working with Riina. She goes and does this very elven thing, which I believe you have seen before. But in this moment, we are mere, like, I'm going to say 30 to 60 seconds after the Jarl has come out and Lauren has just pulled this thing out of the fire, and Riina just begins doing this very elven thing.
Mm-hmm.
What is your reaction? And does it involve dice or no?
I don't think so. I'm just going to kind of relax into it because I've seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not threatened. I'm not concerned. I'm just going to just kind of let it happen because I know from working with her before and knowledge of elves that it doesn't faze me.
Okay. So that sounds like, Riina, you see from Ogetti the appropriate amount of pause.
Yeah.
Before the appropriate response action happens.
My thought is that more specifically what Riina is doing is a sort of like complicated elvish patty cake.
Sure. So and I really like that because it's almost like by yourself, just there standing there, you like just start and do a pattern to thin air where there would be someone opposite you, but it's nothing to start with. And then rather than having someone sort of scramble to like catch up, you need someone to like see and recognize the pattern and the sequence to begin with 1, maybe 2 times.
Yeah.
And then they can join in. And the acknowledgement is the watching and recognition and joining in at the appropriate time, which I feel like Ogetti does, right? Ogetti has worked with you before and you both want the same things. And that seems resonant with who Ogetti is. So you do that. And we'll give Lauren the benefit of like having watched all of this happen once, because this is a very one-on-one thing. So you two do that. And Lauren, when Riina turns to you, what do you do?
Well, I think that Lurin's real danger is overthinking things. I think what might trip him up here is that he's going to try and take an intellectual approach and just might like lock the feeling too far down to actually be able to commune in the way that Riina's looking for right here.
Okay, awesome. So, Riina, I'm actually going to... You have a little bit of experience with Fate, so I'm going to say, thinking about the Fate ladder and how approaches work and all that good stuff, and the fact that I don't even... Actually, in front of me, I don't even have what Lauren's highest approach is, but I'm assuming you're using focus for this, Lauren. Is that accurate?
Well, I was saying Lurin, I was thinking he was using intellect because he's
okay, yeah,
like, in danger of overthinking it, right?
Okay, so what is the rating on your intellect?
That's actually his highest, and it's 3. So.
It's 3. Okay, so with that in mind, Riina, having done this with Ogetti and feeling like that flow and that resonance that you're really looking for, what difficulty would you set for this role that Lauren is about to do?
I think Rina's sort of primed and a little like comfortable already with like especially because like Ogetti just like immediately doing everything very right. And Rina sort of like need Lauren to get the right answer. So she'd probably make it a little easy for him, but still not super easy.
Okay.
And so we're probably at like a 3 then.
Okay, awesome. Lauren, go ahead and give an intellect roll.
Okay.
Your difficulty is a 3.
4 dice. I got 1 plus and 2 minus. So I'm actually at a 2.
Okay. So you have a few options here, Lauren. You can fail the action. You can succeed at a major cost. Or you can spend a fate point and invoke an aspect that would get you up to a 4, because that would be a +2 on the dice. And the reason I say that is you could re-roll, but probability-wise, about the only time to re-roll is when you're at -3.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So what's the most narratively interesting to you?
I think he might fail. I don't think Lauren... I think he does just get caught up too much in his head and is, like, unable to catch the flow. Like, he doesn't have the feel enough to be able to do this thing.
Okay, so we know that Lauren fails to do this. Riina, from your perspective, what does that failure look like?
So Rina's doing the pattern, and then Lauren's also doing the pattern, and then Lauren at one point literally basically smacks her in the face. Because there was a point where they were both supposed to sort of like do like this and then like back up and then like around and over and just wham.
Oh no! And that breaks Lauren instantly. Any connection he had to the pattern is completely gone. She's like, "Oh, Riina, I'm so sorry. Are you all right?"
I think that is enough for right now.
It is more than enough, says Bazakhor in your head. You don't get that sense that there's more that Bazakhor is saying, but you also get the sense that Bazakhor is intentionally not saying anything else.
Yeah. I think when we speak with my people, you should speak not a lot.
I think he'll kind of like consider that for a moment and then look to Ogetti and say, well, perhaps you should be the voice of the village and I will support you.
Put my hand out on his shoulder. Yeah, I think that's best. It'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Shall we then?
Mm-hmm.
So as you are beginning to exit, we'll just even say Lauren's house. I just want a brief description from each of you as you exit the house. What's sort of the first, not necessarily the first thing that you see, but what is the impression of the holdfast around you that you get, given the context of everything that's going on? And if it's all right, Lauren, I'd like to start with you because you are the only person who has not been out of your home today in our campaign, right? So, like, to give you some context to work with, it seems to be a regular day. You know the context of everything that is going on with the Jarl and the deal and all of that, but the holdfast seems to just be moving along a pace. So what is your impression of that? How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, I guess he probably had an expectation that there'd be more of a sense of anticipation or foreboding. And the fact that that's missing is kind of like he doesn't know what to make of that quite. If people don't understand the stakes or I think it almost like kind of like doubles down on the responsibility he feels like, oh God, these people have no idea. Like, what's hanging in the balance right now.
All right, and Riina, what is your impression of everything?
Riina is Riina feels like that compared to the normal day, less people are staring at her than usual.
Interesting.
And it's like So they've obviously got something on their mind, but they're not showing it.
Okay. That's very interesting. I like that a lot. And Ogetti, what is your sense of things?
I'm gonna kind of sense the weather and animals, any kind of birds or anything like that. It just feels that there's kind of an anticipation in the air with maybe the birds around that's not necessarily coming from the people.
Right. So, and I think that is a very interesting note to sort of proceed on, right? Because of the three of you, you are most the member of this holdfast, Ogetti. Like, yeah, you spend a lot of time at the Skald of Karth, but you are, though a rune-scribed person within the holdfast, right? And you go and do regular holdfast things, and so you notice things like that. And I would say that as you all are sort of walking in not companionable, but just sort of silence to the nearest gate to like exit and head toward wherever the Elven Enclave is. Ogetti, you get this sense. You look around and there aren't that many birds in the sky. And there aren't, like, even the chickens in the holdfast like are not like just running around in the dirt. They're all sort of clustered around their coops a little bit more than they otherwise would be. And as this sort of odd silence, this strange calm before the storm feeling that you're sensing, Ogetti, you all hear echoing across everything in the holdfast. And it's everyone in the holdfast stops. There's a beat, a split second, because that is not the call of the horns of an ally. That is the call of the war horns of the dwarves.
Oh boy.
And something is headed toward the holdfast. So, in that moment, the war is now 7 years long. You all have had brushes with the dwarves. You've all had encounters with them, their destroyers, their automatons, their spiders. You have what amounts to 2 exchanges, 2 rounds in a traditional gaming sense, to do things to prepare for this. This can be you moving to a position to see things, to gather information. You can create advantages if you are gathering supplies or magical energy or whatever it may be. And what we are going to do to sort of handle all of that is if you can move Ian and everyone to slide 6. We have a bunch of blank aspect cards, a bunch of fate points sitting off to the side there on slide 5. I apologize. Slide 5 on the presentation. If you create advantages, we will take these aspect cards as I just did, and we will move it and rename it, and we will put fate points on it, so you know what resources you have available to you. And then we will use that space. We'll take these fate points and we will rename, change the initial in them to represent your characters. So those will then act also as zones for the combat. So we'll literally arrange cards and put yourselves on the cards to represent where you are in relation to everything.
Sorry, Tracy, you've gotten really quiet. I couldn't really follow the entirety of that exchange.
I'm sorry. So we're going to use slide 5 to sort of handle all of this stuff. If you are creating advantages, then we'll use the aspect cards and rename them to be whatever they need to be. And then we will also use these cards as indications of the zones that you are in for the coming conflict. We'll take the fate points, we'll rename them with your character's initial and to represent the positioning and everything, because fate is a more abstract system. So now I have the microphone much closer to my face, so hopefully that will...
Good deal.
Yeah, it's still a little quiet, but
okay.
I think it's because of your horn. It like auto balanced.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Then let me there we go. I've turned up my gain a little bit, so hopefully that that helps some. So the three of you hear the dwarven horn echo across the entire holdfast. You are somewhere in between the blacksmith shop, the blacksmith's home, and the gates that would lead you to where the elven envoys are. For these two sort of rounds, as long as all three of you act, I'm not concerned with the order in which you act. When it comes to the actual conflict and the dwarves are approaching, we use handoff initiative or Balsera initiative or popcorn initiative, whatever phrase you want to use it. So the first person to act acts, and then they choose who goes next. And that includes your opponents.
Nice.
And I will list out who your opponents are so you know everyone who has a chance to act during the turn. So, of everyone who is here and hears that, what do you do?
I think Lurin's first instinct is to use the Eyes of the Raven stunt and just try and get a sense real quickly of what's going on, what's coming their way.
Okay, cool. So for those who are watching, could you please read off the Eyes of the Raven?
Yeah, definitely.
So everyone knows what's going on with it.
Sure. It's you have a raven companion given to you by the powers of fate. Once per scene, you may roll an overcome with intellect to see, perceive, or notice through that raven's eyes, no matter how far from it you are.
Okay, so I would say that your difficulty in this instance is just a 2. The camera sort of moves to where your raven is. Where is that? Where has your raven been this whole time?
I don't know if other people can order their ravens around, but I don't think that Lurin's gotten the knack of that, if that's a thing you can do yet. So I think it was probably just roosting on the central like longhouse or
the meat hall. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's got like a loose tile on the roof of the mead hall that it has kind of like made its home. So.
Okay. All right. Then your difficulty in this instance is going to be a 2. So let's have a roll.
Okay. And that is overcome with intellect.
Mm-hmm.
I am not rolling awesome tonight. That is 2 minuses, so I'm at a 1.
Okay, you're at a 1. So you can choose to fail. You can succeed at a major cost, or you can invoke an aspect to take that up to a +2, or sorry, to add +2 to it, which will give you the success you need, or you can choose to re-roll. So which of those 3 options is most appealing to you?
I think I might invoke my high concepts, newly come to the mantle of seer. Like, this is something that he needs to do in this moment. He needs to be able to be the seer for the town.
Okay, awesome. So I am removing a fate point from slide 3 for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you then, what does it look like when you summon your raven up? Like, you're like, oh God, it's not working. And then suddenly your raven responds to you. What does that look like?
I think he has his ritual staff that was handed down from the previous year. And I think that at first he just sort of like closed his eyes where he was. And when that doesn't work, he kind of like grips the staff with both hands and sort of like plants it and kind of almost knocks his forehead with like the tip of it and just like focuses through it to try and make that connection.
Everyone else, as you see Lurin do this, it looks a little desperate, right? Where he's like, okay, he's focusing, and you feel sort of a surge of power from him, but nothing sort of seems to happen. And then Lurin almost knocks his head against the staff. And to anyone who is aware, the raven takes off and begins to fly. Anyone who glances at Lurin, his eyes have turned a blank milky white, and small black feathers have begun to sprout around his eyes like raven feathers.
Cool.
And Lurin, your vision is now that of the ravens.
Okay.
And we had established that there is a sort of hilly landscape around this holdfast, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And so the raven flies out faster than a human can run, and you see, sort of cresting a hill, not one, but two massive shapes. Both of them Dwarven Destroyers, like hulking metal monstrosities, 50 feet tall, moving as in humanoid shapes, but both coming for your holdfast. And across each of their lower jaws, there are runes emblazoned that burn with like the same color of the sort of engine that powers them.
Mm-hmm.
One is purple, the other is green. You can read these runes.
Okay.
What is the name of the first destroyer that you see? Because the runes proclaim the destroyer's name for all to see.
I think it's... Let's see here. I think that the first one's name is... I want to go with like Soul Cracker or Soul Snapper or something like that. Some sense of like, don't just kill you, just like dissipate you entirely.
Soul Cracker is good. I like that a lot. Cool. So that is what you see.
Okay.
You did not get success with style on that, so you get no additional bonuses from this action.
Mm-hmm.
But what you can do is you can inform people of the holdfast that there is more than one destroyer coming, which is not the norm.
Okay.
Like, that's a lot of power coming at your holdfast. So that is your turn.
Mm-hmm.
Ogetti and Riina, what do you do?
I'm going to kind of rush up to like where our gates would be, so I can see also what I can see, and kind of see how any of the other warriors might be coming to prepare for a defensive movement. So I'm gonna look, see what I can see, and then kind of stand, like if I needed to run back to where the skald hearth is.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna kind of set up a kind of a defensive wait and see what happens kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of get really psyched up, and my protective nature is really, really kicking in.
Sure. So that reads to me like creating an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So making a new aspect for yourself that you can also then share with your allies if, narratively speaking, it's appropriate.
So the battlefield, the previous battlefield was between the Skald's Hearth and the Holdfast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that's like where the natural valley, like that's the easiest point of access lies for the Heim, and if we're likely to be headed back to that same defensive ground this time.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. And I think, like, sort of thematically speaking, that's a really good thing for Ogetti to do because you are familiar with where the previous battle was fought.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So Ogetti, when you're doing this, what approach are you using of the ones you have available?
Probably focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm really kind of focusing on what's happening and taking all that information in. So I'm kind of putting all that in a defensive, what am I going to need to do? Who do I need to protect? What do I need to do? Kind of. So I'm really going to hyper focus on defensive, making sure that, I'm in the right place where I need to be.
Okay. And I'm going to say that um, because you let someone on this battlefield die previously,
Mhm.
that stress is sort of in your mind a little bit.
Right.
So that's going to take the difficulty of this to a 3.
Okay.
Um,
So I have a
um,
2 is my
okay.
focus.
Yeah, so roll your dice plus 2. And if you succeed on this, you'll create an aspect called battlefield preparedness.
Okay. All 4 dice?
All 4 dice.
All right. So I've got 2 minus 1 plus.
2 minus 1 plus. So the total then is a -1 plus 2, which is a 1.
Woo!
So again, your options are you can fail on this roll, and you describe narratively what happens. You can succeed at a major cost, and you can create this aspect which will have a free invocation on it that you can then pass to anybody else as you are like shouting orders or things of that nature, right? That's the narrative justification. Or you can invoke one or more aspects to get like +2s on your roll per aspect, to create this advantage.
I'm actually going to fail
Okay.
because where I get to the point where he died, where the skald died is or where she died was it just kind of stops me for a moment, and it kind of takes me right out of myself. So I run quickly. I'm paying attention. Everything is good, and then bam, I hit it, and it just hits me that, oh God, I'm gonna fail again.
Well, it's like a bucket of ice water.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you even feel that radiate from your Isa tattoo.
Yeah.
Right. Because that's power that you had to bring to bear and it didn't work.
Right.
And it just washes over you. And for that moment, they're in the middle, because I would imagine you were the first person out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You heard the horns. You've been ready for this for weeks and months. And you run out there, and suddenly it's like walking under a waterfall.
Right.
And you are just in that moment stopped.
And the ice of the Isa, I just have this icy feeling just goes right through me.
And that is your turn for this round.
Yep.
Riina, what do you do?
Riina was just like following right behind Ogetti. Like, all right, let's do this. Let's get ready. Sure, whatever. And then Ogetti stops. So Riina just takes a moment, puts her hand on Ogetti's shoulder and like nods, and then turns around and begins screaming and yelling at the top of her voice with a bit of a second voice underneath as she just screams out orders at all the people behind them, basically being like, "You heard Ogetti, blah, 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 blah."
Lovely.
Okay, cool. So this sounds like, because I feel like you're continuing Ogetti's action. So this is still the creation of the advantage battlefield preparedness.
Yeah.
But your difficulty is only going to be a 1.
Okay.
Because you are capitalizing on this moment that you have with people who are just listening for an authority figure.
Yeah.
So what approach are you using? That sounds forceful to me, but
yeah, Riina is using force.
Okay, awesome.
I'm going to be using my tree's presence stunt.
Oh, excellent. Would you read Tree's Presence for those who are playing at home?
Because of the wood residing in your body, you are able to channel its might through your voice. You get a +2 to create advantages using force when you speak with the strength of your tree.
Okay, so what is the rating on your forceful approach?
It's usually 2. So now
2,
it's
so you're rolling at a +4. So and your difficulty is a 1. So
Wow.
yeah. Yeah, you basically canceled out the dice. Congratulations.
My cat's moved my dice. But now I've got it. Okay. Well, we're all rolling not great because I got a total of -1 from there.
Woo!
So, but that's still a 3. So it's still a success.
That is a clean success. So we will flip over back to slide 5, and I will grab this aspect card. And what we have is battlefield preparedness, and there is an invocation upon that. That is your invocation. So by and large, it is yours to do with as you see fit. So you can give it to somebody else. You can reserve it for yourself. It is yours. There just needs to be sort of narrative context for you letting anyone else use it.
Okay.
And because this is a good note for how conflicts work in this game, this is a game of epic Norse action. So the zones are very big. What you can accomplish in, like, with the reach of your voice is very large. Think anime with this, right? Like,
Right.
you can accomplish a lot. You can move a long distance because it is narratively more interesting for you to be able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the first exchange. As you all have made these preparations or you are running into your positions, Lurin, your raven begins to circle back around because even a magically controlled raven has some natural caution about it.
Sure.
And the Dwarven Destroyers are now cresting the hill. And everyone can see that there are 2 Dwarven Destroyers, at least 4 Dwarven automatons. By the way, each automaton is about 7 feet tall, and each one is usually a match for a human warrior. And the number of Dwarven spiders, all of whom have sort of central masses that are about a foot and a half diameter, with 9 legs, each of which has 9 joints.
Oof.
Yeah, I love that reaction, by the way. Those are uncountable because the number, like the flailing masses of legs and the silvery bodies, make it very difficult to know how many of those there are. But that is what is surging to your holdfast. It is not a Dwarven skirmish. You are facing a Dwarven army.
Yikes.
And they are coming for you and ostensibly your elven allies. So that is the end of the first exchange. You each have one more action you can take before we enter the full-on conflict when the dwarves are in range and taking their own actions. So, who does what next?
I think Riina summons Bazakhor.
Excellent. Mark off a box of Summon the Wood for yourself there.
Mm-hmm.
And please tell us in excruciating detail what it looks like when you summon Bazakhor from the ground.
Yeah. So Riina sort of backs up a little bit away from some people, realizes that she's not going to get like a clean area, and is just sort of like, "Welp, that we're gonna have to do." Riina begins to dig her arms and her feet into the earth, like physically rooting herself in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this sound of like deep snapping,
Mm-hmm.
As like something is shaking and moving underneath the ground. Then coming up around Riina, rushing past her, is knotted and old bark, leaves and branches and everything in this sort of swirling maelstrom, just crashing out of the ground, until what is there is the ancient oak Bazakhor.
And where is Rina's physical body situated within Bazakhor?
Riina is within the trunk.
Within the trunk, and the same as the bone bonded. As you move, so moves the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there are bunches of limbs. It's a big oak. There's acorns hanging from branches and a lot of oak leaves. But there's still a main trunk with 2 main splits at the bottom to represent legs and 2 long branches that represent the arms.
Yeah.
And as you move, there's the groaning sound of wood as Bazakhor sort of stretches its limbs, and you're not sure if you're moving the tree or the tree is moving you.
Mhm.
for a moment.
Yeah.
Very excellent. Ogetti and Lurin, what is it that you do next?
I think that Lurin is going to. I think Lurin might try and pluck the threads of fate here.
Excellent. What is Lurin attempting to accomplish?
I think so. I think that the way that Lurin has begun to kind of conceptualize of seer magic is like being really uncanny hindsight, basically. Like, oh, I should have done that. Like, and then we just kind of like twiddle the threads of fate back to make some of that have happened. Is that fair?
No, that's totally within keeping. Yes.
Yeah. So I think that he is wishing that we had like grown a hedge wall basically at the northern edge of what had been the battlefields previously. So that's like what he's envisioning in his mind's eye is just like a really thick hedgerow that, you know, would hopefully slow down this dwarven onslaught.
Wonderful. Okay, so the difficulty for your seer magic is always a 4. So go ahead and roll your focus at a difficulty of 4.
Okay.
Will just to clarify for you and for the folks who are listening, no matter what the result of this, the effect goes off because seer magic is that powerful. You will create an advantage, which is in this case ancient hedgerow, right, with at least 2 invocations on it. Now, if you fail, you either have to mark a box of mistrusted on your sheet or mark a box of indebted, which represents the power to whom you are beholden for making this happen. And we'll talk about who or what that is if you choose that option.
Gotcha.
If you, that's the same if you tie. You have to exceed the difficulty, and if you do, you get 3 invocations on this. Because 4 is a decent difficulty.
Yeah.
So, let's have your roll.
All right. So I have a 2 in focus, and I have ritual staff, which gives me a +2 if I use it while conducting my seer magic. So I think that he's like kind of pointing the staff across the battlefield, almost like not pointing it so much as like holding it up where he's envisioning the hedgerow to be.
Right.
Sort of in his mind's eye.
You're looking back into the past and seeing what it would have taken for this hedgerow to have already existed.
Then roll, and I got 1+ and 1-, so I'm at 4.
Okay, you are at 4, so that is a tie. So that is the same as failure in this case.
Yeah.
Do you wish to invoke an aspect to get over your difficulty?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think he's Clan Hammer. And so
the world is meant to be shaped.
Yeah, this plays right into what he's chosen as his clan. He wants to shape the world in defense of his holdfast. So I think I'm going to invoke the clan there.
Okay, that's wonderful. So what I have done is I've taken an aspect off of, or a fate point off of your sheet, and I am reshaping a box here on our slide 5. So I've made an ancient hedgerow, and we are going to let me just order, bring to front. There we go. So the ancient hedgerow now sits between the battlefield and the holdfast, near the Skalded Hearth. You also 1, 2, 3. Well, that's way too many. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Still too many. I'll drag them one by one if I need to. And I'll bring them to the front too. Technological limitations. We'll get this. Right click, bring to order, bring to front, and drag them over. Now then, the ancient hedgerow has 3 fate points on it because you succeeded on this action. This is also a zone within which people can take actions. So in a moment, when we get your last the last of the actions specifically from Ogetti, we will make tokens that have an L, an O, and my brain is and an R on them, and that will indicate where you are on sort of in the overall positioning of everything. I'll
Right.
put the Dwarven Destroyers on there as well. But slide 5 is what we have so far. These are our zones, and this is what is going on. So we can change the size of these boxes and make them whatever we need to. But you have 3 fate points on the Ancient Hedgerow. So very good use of the invocation, because you essentially traded one of your own fate points that was only for you to 3 fate points that can be used for whomever. The creepy thing about all of this is that everyone except for Lurin, you watch this happen and you feel a sense of relief. Wow, it's a good thing that we had that hedgerow there.
Yeah.
Because it was always there. This is just how things were. And Lurin, you have to sit with the fact that it wasn't always there.
Yeah.
You put it there. You tweaked the strands of fate to make this happen.
That's really cool.
And now it's Ogetti's turn.
All right. So I'm going to get a little fired up. And I'm going to go over there where the hedgerow is in between the hearth. I want to kind of put some... I want to use my runes, my Isa rune, to kind of use some power to bring the frost that's around on the ground and turn it into a big slick ice.
Ooh.
Right in front of the hedgerow, so it would maybe they might tumble over.
Sure.
Kind of thing.
So what approach are you using for that?
Force.
Okay, excellent. So mark a box of runic power, because this will let you use your rune with whatever approach you want to for the rest of this scene.
Okay.
And the scene will be the whole conflict, right? So anytime you do that, that's what you're doing.
Okay.
The other thing is you have a choice you need to make here when you make this roll. The runes operate at heroic scale by default. Everything else is operating at human scale, including the hedgerow that Lurin summoned forth. So heroic scale is 1 step above human scale. So you can either get a +1 on your roll straight up at the front, or you can choose to get a +2 on the result if you succeed. And that includes succeeding at a cost. It's a little weird. So, right, if you fail the roll but choose to succeed at a cost, you automatically bump it up by 2, but you're still taking some big drawback because of it.
Right.
But you have to make that choice before you roll the dice. So,
okay. I'll take the latter. I want it to be really, I just want it to get out there.
Okay, awesome. So what's your rating on your forceful?
3.
All right, and so then you are going to roll that at +3. If you succeed, you're going to get a +2 on the back end of it. And this seems like a pretty straightforward usage of Isa, right? You are just going to cover the hedgerow or the wall with ice. So your difficulty is only going to be a 2.
Oh, okay. So it's not the hedgerow itself. It's like the ground in front of the hedgerow.
Sure.
So, okay. I got 3 pluses.
Oh, finally.
So you got 3 pluses, +3 forceful, and then +2 on the back end. That's a total of +8.
Whoa.
Your difficulty was a +2. Was a 2. So you succeeded by 6 shifts, which is very easily successful style, like far and away. So I'm going to do like the mechanical placement of the aspects and stuff on what's going on here. Please, with all narrative freedom that you wish, tell us how this looks.
Okay. So So I'm running out there. I checked on the hearth and I've got my shit together again. So I run out there and I just scream with like the clan of the dragon, and just all of a sudden all this ice and frost just kind of comes together as I'm raising my hands up and screaming at the same time. And then the whole battlefield where they're going to come into us is just covered with ice and shiny and ready to be slippery.
Wonderful. So normally you would get 1 fate point for a regular success. A success with style, like you got, gets you 2 fate points. The difference is because you were doing this at heroic scale, which is 1 step above, because you had such an outlandish success.
Mm-hmm.
If it is narratively appropriate, those fate points will be worth a +3 instead of a +2.
Okay.
Because it's 1 step of scale above whatever else is going on. So if we all look at slide 5, then here is the situation that we have right now. The only person, well, I guess not the only person, but I have Ogetti placed in near the ancient hedgerow. I'm going to move another thing over here and bring it to the front and make that an R. We have Riina also in the ancient hedgerow, and it feels, Lurin, like you were doing these actions from the holdfast. Does that track?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you will be over here in the holdfast. So any letter that is not an F in those little circles, those are y'all, right? Like those are where you are and what's going on. The other thing that I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to color those to be like a rose color, so they're more easily distinguishable from the fate points. And as things sort of come to a head, we also have a few other things that enter the battlefield. We have the first Dwarven Destroyer, which we have had named as, what was it, Soulcracker, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one also enters the battlefield here. We have 2 groups of automatons. One is heading right towards the Scalded Hearth. Another one is backing up the destroyers in the battlefield. And I'm not going to make tokens for the Dwarven Spiders because it's fairly safe to assume that they're just about everywhere.
Right.
Because that's sort of how they operate. They're more in this instance, they're more a universal threat. So if you want to do something that specifically targets the Dwarven Spiders, let me know and we'll lower their overall effectiveness.
Okay.
The other thing that you have on your side is that you have the holdfast itself, because those are actual people fighting in defense of their homes.
Right.
So they are there. They're a slightly lighter pink than you all are. And then the other thing that you have is over here on the Scalded Hearth, you have the Skalds. So just for people who are watching along, I am winging a lot of the stats for the people who are not destroyers and such. But the lovely thing about Fate is that things really just tend to operate at a range between +2 and +3. So as long as you are using consistent numbers, everything works just fine. So, we are at the start of our first major conflict in this game.
Huzzah!
Who is going to act first? Keeping in mind that once your action is done, you will choose who goes next.
Well, Arena's big and we'll go.
There you go. That's what I like to hear.
All right.
Yeah, so you are, just as a brief primer on Fate mechanics, as an action, you can move one zone as part of your action. So if you need to get into a zone with some Dwarven Destroyers, you can totally do it. Beyond that, we'll negotiate it, and then you can also just take an action. So what is Riina doing?
So Riina is within Bazakhor right now. And she sees all of these people coming, and she sees the Skaldic hearth itself being sort of like not as well defended. But the two destroyers aren't going for them.
Right.
So she sort of lets them be for right now and focuses on the destroyers.
Okay. Just so you are aware, the one that Lurin identified, the runes on its lower jaw are purple, and its name is Soulcracker. You are able to identify the runes on the lower jaw of the second one. Those runes are almost, it's a blackish green, and its name is Rotbringer.
Rotbringer. I don't like that one bit. All right. Well,
it seems not great, especially as a tree.
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah. Let's deal with that guy first.
Okay.
So Rita's going to reach her arms down, bringing Bazakhor's limbs, and the big, knotted wooden hands, effectively at the ends of the branches into the earth, ripping up massive clots of stone and dirt, and utilizing the whip-like and but still old and knotted and tight nature of the sinews of Bazakhor's limbs, effectively trebuchet these massive dirt bombs at the destroyer.
Fantastic.
Okay, awesome. What approach are you using?
I think Riina is using Bazakhor's stiff approach for this.
Okay. Yeah. So utilizing the minor elasticity of these limbs to actually just fling chunks of stuff. Yeah. Okay. So Rotbringer is going to oppose with Flare.
Okay.
So go ahead and give me a roll.
I've got a 4 total.
Okay. Rotbringer rolled a 3 total with a Flare of Good. So as it stands, you will inflict one shift of stress upon Rotbringer. Do you wish to do more than that or no?
Yeah. I think Rina's going to use one of her personal fate points to invoke the Bazakhor's aspect of ancient oak.
Okay.
It has lived through many things rotting, and it's not going to start rotting now.
Okay. So that gives you 2 more, correct?
So
okay.
3.
Then Rotbringer is going to let that stand and is going to mark 3 boxes of stress.
Cool.
So just mechanically speaking, y'all, the Dwarven Destroyers have 6 stress boxes, as well as Imperiled and Doomed. They are full-fledged badasses like you all. So
Gotcha.
So the first 3 boxes of Rotbringer have been marked. Then I will ask you, Riina, who goes next?
Just a quick question first. Do I still have that boost from last session?
You do have that boost from last session.
And that is what I used to invoke this.
Okay, excellent.
I think next, since Riina was thinking about the Skaldic Hearth being slightly undefended right now, that it would make sense for the focus to shift over there and for one of those 2 NPC groups to go.
Okay. Do you want it to be the Skaldic Hearth, or do you want it to be the holdfast itself?
I want it to be the Skaldic Hearth.
Okay. So I will throw this over to Ogetti real quick. Ogetti, how do the Skalds prepare these kinds of defenses? Like, what does it look like when they stand against the Dwarven automaton and the spiders that are in their midst?
They kind of bring together a bit of a shield wall that's kind of protective, more because they've got the hearth behind them. They don't need to go in circle or back to back, so they can stay pretty straight up. So that way, anybody behind them that has some sort of power can do that. And they're very protective of whomever is behind that, to be that kind of shield wall of defense right there.
Okay. Is because they are Skalds, is this all sort of mundane effort on their part, or is there any kind of a magic imbued in it?
It's kind of it's a mix. Is that most of them who are there, who are young, who are they know battle, everybody knows how to defend the hearth, and then you do have a couple of them that have a few extra powers. To be able to, move the earth, maybe to make it more difficult for the spiders, or and just basically spirit them, and then just use some basic earth powers.
Okay, cool.
To unsettle them.
Sure, that sounds like they're attacking the Dwarven automatons with that. So. Go ahead and roll at a +3, and I will let you know that the automatons oppose at a -2 to resisting magical disruption. So whatever I roll with the automatons is going to be at a -2 because of the power imbued here.
Yeah, I got 3 pluses.
Jesus. So I rolled +1 on the dice, -2 is a -1. So I'm sitting on a -1. You rolled 3 pluses +3. So I would like you to tell me. I'm gonna hold it off real quickly because the automaton marks their in peril condition. So that mitigates 4 shifts of the stress, because you did a total of 7 shifts to this automaton, which is a whole lot. So they're going to mark in peril and 3 of their stress boxes. So the automaton survives, but what does this look like?
So as they come around, they're getting together and they kind of make a group, kind of, a spear shield kind of attack, and then the ones with the powers is kind of shifting and kind of chanting, and the earth starts kind of going, almost like quicksandy kind of movement. It's the earth just kind of flows right under it, so it starts kind of wibbling and wobbling, and then they're able to hit spear up some good points, so it kind of gets disabled on its own, because now they can go into soft bits.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And there's not an easy way to represent this, but there is an aspect on this automaton that is like something like earth speared, and there is a free invocation on that. So you've got something else that can be used to like hit this thing later.
Okay.
So after the Skaldic Hearth goes, who or what goes next, including the enemies?
So D2 there, that's the Rotbringer?
That is Rotbringer, yes.
Okay. That's the one that makes me mad. Because, it's that, death is not evil, but this is an evil way to make death.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't like it one bit. Hell doesn't like it one bit. And so I am going to how do I do this? So for that one, I'm going to try to summon the power to kind of do a cold wind shift with my hands out like this to see if I can't kind of make it lose its balance on the ice that it's on.
Okay. So one, you are going. Ogetti is going next. Is that?
Oh yeah. Sorry,
okay.
I'm going to go next.
That's fine. That's fine. I just want to procedurally make sure I understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Two, this is another creation of an advantage, because advantages can be placed upon things, right? So essentially, you're trying to knock it prone.
Right.
Is what this amounts to.
Yep.
Okay. So you can choose what approach you're going to use. Which of them are you gonna choose?
That's going to be force.
Okay. And you don't get a bonus on this one,
right?
Because you are heroic scale, but these things are giant scale,
right?
So it actually gets to choose now. Is it going to get a +1 or the +2 effect on the back end?
Do I do a stunt now while I'm describing all this? Can I use a stunt?
What stunt are you looking at?
I live to serve.
Okay, so read what that says.
Because you serve your community without seeking power over the people around you, you gain a +1 to create advantages when you're helping the people of your holdfast.
Yes, so that automatically applies.
Okay.
And that basically negates its +1. So you two are rolling even up. So you're effectively operating at giant scale for this exchange.
Okay.
So Rotbringer is going to roll force to try and oppose your force. It's just going to stand its ground.
Right.
But you've got a lot of invocations sitting there on ice, so we'll see how this goes. So go ahead and roll.
Oh, not good.
Either.
So I have a -2.
Plus your force +1.
Okay.
So you have a
3.
You have a +2.
I have a +2.
Right, because your force roll +3, right?
Right.
Okay. So Rotbringer is rolling its force roll, which is a +4. It also rolled a -2. So you two are tied. So as of right now, that is the case. So you can let that stand, which you as sort of the aggressor can get a boost, which is a temporary aspect. So something like off balance.
Yeah.
That someone can use, or you can invoke any aspects you want to, like the invocations you have on ice there, or your own fate points to bump that up, and then place the aspect on Rotbringer of prone.
Okay.
It's like a fictional thing, meaning that Rotbringer is then prone and has to stand up from it, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Yeah. I have the aspect. Is it for the from the ice?
Mm-hmm.
Is that while it's resisting, it would still have a chance of sliding under.
Exactly.
It's pushing back, but it's it's still it doesn't have a firm grip on the ground.
Cool. So you're going to use one of the 2 invocations on ice.
Right.
And transfer. So basically, and this is the nice thing about doing something like this, you are transferring that over so that I'm not even going to bother making another thing here. I'm just going to write it on D2's little circle here. So D2 is now prone. And you have a fate point on that aspect. So that means, let's see. So you got 4 total. You both got a 4, and you added 2 to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to write a 6 on this. That is the difficulty that Rotbringer has to exceed to get up.
Okay. Okay.
right?
Cool.
Because numerically that means something. That's the roll that you got to create that advantage. So that's the roll that Rotbringer has to overcome to be able to stand.
Cool.
Yeah. So you have now gone. The remaining players on the field are Soulcracker, the automaton on Soulcracker's side of things, the holdfast itself, and Lurin. Who is going to go next?
I think that Lauren will go next.
Lurin, what you going to do?
That is a really good question.
Uh-huh.
I think that Lurin does not want to be seen as like hanging back. So I think that they're gonna advance to the hedgerow.
Okay, I will move that token to the hedgerow and make sure that we can all see it. Okay, you are now in the hedgerow as part of this action. So what are you doing when you are striding forth with your seer staff and your raven on your shoulder?
I think he is going to be trying to rally the holdfast into battle.
Okay.
Basically.
Awesome. So what are you saying or doing to have that happen?
I think he's just invoking like the history of Aevilheimr, and that, you know, this is our home. We're not going to allow the dwarves to destroy it, and just like, you know, kind of trying to rally people in that way.
Okay. What approach are you going to use?
I think that's probably is a flare thing. Oh, I have a
Okay.
dog.
We're going to use wolves.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we're going to use
The
wolves.
local wolves. Join the fight.
Waffle, come on.
The baying hounds with the holdfast.
Wait, hold on. Your dog's name is Waffle?
Yes.
That's amazing, and I love it. Can we get a Waffle moment on camera?
Oh, we'll see. We'll see if she's feeling it.
Okay.
I want to pet the doggy.
You say hi?
Waffle!
Oh.
Oh,
Hi, buddy.
oh, what a
Hi,
sweetie.
baby.
Yeah, I can see why you wanted to bark. You just need some attention.
Yeah, she's very patient. Yeah,
Cool.
so flare is not something Lurin is good at. He's not a flare kind of person, so.
Fair enough. The difficulty in this instance, because you are in the middle of battle and you are calling upon things that make sense to people, your difficulty is just a 2.
Okay,
And you are creating an advantage, which is rally the holdfast.
cool. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and roll at that. Oh, and I got 2 successes and no minuses, so we're there.
Okay.
Oh, no, I'm not, because I'm tied, right? Because I have a 0 flare.
Yes. So you are tied. So you can succeed at a minor cost. Or you can invoke an aspect.
That's intriguing. I suppose I don't get to know what the minor cost is before I accept
No,
it.
no,
huh?
I'll let you know. So in this instance, I think that your minor cost would be that So the
Is it? Can I suggest something?
Sure, by all means.
I think that he's not being mindful of his limitations, and he exacerbates the wound on his side, and maybe
Okay.
that has a penalty going forward to force or something.
Well, so I wouldn't say a penalty, but what I'll do is I will have you mark a stress box
Oh, okay.
off your sheet. That yeah, you totally do that. Because so basically, like, since shifts on die rolls are equal to stress boxes, essentially you needed one more shift to succeed. So one shift equaling one stress box
Nice.
makes mechanical sense.
Oh, that's really clean. I like that.
Yeah. That's the way I process fate, right? Is that like everything equates to everything else, so let's make things equate for costs.
Cool.
So yeah, you do that. You give a great rallying speech, and as you lift your arm up like and pump your fist, your side just tears.
Yeah.
And it tears a little bit deeper than you're used to. And so like you can function, everything's fine right now, except that you now have blood running down your side.
Yeah.
So stress gets erased at the end of the conflict, but for the foreseeable time, you now have a stress box.
All right. That is totally good.
Yeah. So the remaining participants in this round are Soulcracker, the automaton on Soulcracker's field, the spiders sort of in general, and the holdfast in general. So who goes next?
I think since Lauren was trying to rally the holdfast, that's what makes sense, is that they're just surging up behind him.
Okay, awesome. The holdfast, because we are talking about just folk, right? We're talking about people who have spears, who some have swords, maybe someone got a wood chopping axe, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just go to town on the spiders because that's the threat that they can sort of meet and assess directly.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is ask one of you to roll on behalf of the holdfast. Lauren, since it was your action, I'll ask you to do that. They're going to roll at a +2, and the spiders, just so you are aware, are going to roll at a -2 because I feel like there are a lot of like clubs and unwieldy implements in the holdfast.
Yeah.
But that's actually really good against spiders because they're not good against crushing attacks.
Yeah.
Like those spindly little legs don't hand up great against
Yeah.
someone dashing them with a chair.
Plus, I feel like they kind of rely on the swarm tactics, and between the ice and the hedgerow, we've kind of broken them up a little bit, right?
No, that's exactly right. There's a lot of narrative justification for
Yeah.
this. So basically, if you succeed on this roll, you're going to tie up the spiders for a round.
Okay.
Right? They're not going to get a chance to act. And every shift that you succeed beyond what I roll is going to mark a stress box for the spiders.
Cool.
Because you have, I mean, your people are ready. So
Awesome.
here we go.
I got 2 up and 2 down. So I'm at...
so you're rolling at a +2 because the holdfast is acting, in concert.
Mm-hmm.
So you have me by 4 shifts at this point in time.
Okay.
You also have that battlefield preparedness aspect hanging out there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to invoke that aspect right now, you can have 6 shifts on the Dwarven Spiders, and you can effectively take them out of the entire conflict.
I like that. I like that, we're seeing the, Ogetti's, like, she read or the battlefield so well that, like, laid all the pieces in place so that once the spiders fled through the hedgerow, I think the holdfast was ready for him and just
And Ogetti, are you okay with Lauren using that fate point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Okay, so the Dwarven Spiders are now effectively out of the conflict. Lauren and anybody else who wants to describe what this looks like. Like, you all have sort of a hand in this with the creation of the hedgerow, and actually, honestly, it's mainly Ogetti and Lauren because names. Riina, you summon the bones, and your focus is the destroyers, right? Like, these spiders are sort of beyond your notice.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll ask you. We'll start with Ogetti because Lauren, you were rolling on behalf of the holdfast. So Ogetti, with all those battlefield preparations, like, what does that look like to you when the holdfast just rallies and just fucking hits these spiders hard? Like,
They're sorry, I have a cat.
I'm not sorry you have a cat.
Whoops.
I have one right here.
So so everybody in the hold, they've been stockpiling weapons, just be on the ready, and they are just so tired of war and battle, and they are just like, you know what? Not again, not again. And so they just go get all these weapons that are over there, and they just go to find their places. They're familiar with this hedgerow's been there forever, and it's been a great defensive move. So they all kind of, gather around that and rush right in and just
and Lauren, finish that off. What does that finally look like when the holdfast literally like you can imagine if you're looking at our little map here,
Mm-hmm.
that H is no longer just confined to the holdfast, but it's spread out over the entire thing, because people are just swarming the spiders, and I'm actually going to delete them from the order because there's not a whole lot that they can do as a unit
Right.
against the destroyers or the automatons, but they handle the spiders. Just so what does that look like finally? Like,
I think that it's like a lot of being bolstered by, you know, the very dramatic, you know, effects of Bazakhor and the ice field and whatnot, and like feeling like they have the momentum right from the outset. Like there's, you know, they're today is not the day, and so
today is not that day. I love that.
I think that a lot of it is them like just making the best of the environmental advantages. Like they know the hedgerow, they're sure-footed on the ice in a way like the little 9 pinchered, you know, legs can't be. Like and yeah, they just like I really see it as them just capitalizing and like being fearless in the face of this assault.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I see like even the young and untested warriors, like there's a kid that looks like they're about to be skewered by a dwarven spider, and they have like the top of a chair or half of a trestle table in their arms, and they just bash the shit out of this thing. And it's this wonderful moment. Like so often in action movie moments, we see the common folk, right, being overrun by the enemy, and this is not that. This is the opposite of that. This is the holdfast standing in defense of what is theirs. Awesome. And it's a wonderful, beautiful moment until there are only bad guys left to go, y'all. So this is the downside of this initiative system is for you is that we have yet to have Rotbringer or Soulcracker or the automatons on their field act yet. So Rotbringer is going to take that first action. Actually, you know what? It was the holdfast. I'll be kind for a second. We'll say let's see. Riina. The holdfast acted. You have Rotbringer, you have Soulcracker, and the automatons. Who is going to act next?
I think it's Soulcracker.
Okay.
Rotbringer's prone, and the automatons are a little bit sort of like a ways away.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So Soulcracker looks across the field and sees the ice and sees the hedgerow and sees Bazakhor. And Soulcracker thinks that the soul of a tree would be a delightful thing to crack open, because if the marrow inside a bone is delicious, what's the marrow inside a tree like?
Sweet.
So, Soulcracker moves right into the ancient hedgerow, not obscured by layers on a program. And Soulcracker levels an attack at Bazakhor. Now, the energy that is sort of powering Soulcracker, I described as a greenish energy, if that's correct. If that,
purple.
Yeah.
Green
purple. Okay. Oh, that's right. So Soulcracker was purple, and Rotbringer was kind of a blackish
green. Yeah.
thing. So as you are watching this happen, so Soulcracker is kind of the head is very full and the jaw is kind of long and protruding to have the runes that contain the name Soulcracker, but the body is a little bit lithe and limber, and it begins sort of like moving across the zone to you. and this purple energy that was suffused its jaw seems to trail down into its limbs until the tips of its hands, which aren't fingers but are just like points, begin crackling with purple energy. For those of you who are playing along at home, Dwarven Destroyers have a condition called Channel Energy. Every Dwarven Destroyer has a massive power source which drives it. The nature of these sources varies wildly, but one thing is true about each of them. When it takes an action, it can mark a box of this condition to add +2 to the action by channeling energy from its source into any part of its massive body. There is no limit to the number of boxes that may be marked in this fashion. It has 5 boxes, y'all. So that is one of the sort of rules things about making an enemy in this fashion, is that they are not constrained to the same things that PCs are constrained to. So it is going to mark 3 boxes of channel energy.
Wow.
It is going to attack Bazakhor with its forceful approach. What this means, Bazakhor and Riina, is that this Dwarven Destroyer is attacking you at a net total of +10. Because y'all are on the same level of scale. So I will ask you, Riina / Bazakhor, with what approach are you defending?
I think that they are going to defend with guile.
Okay. I will run this down before your roll, just so everyone who is listening can sort of get a grip on this too. You have 6 stress boxes. You have an imperil condition, which can mitigate 4 shifts of stress. You have a doomed condition, which can mitigate 6 shifts of stress. And you also have fate points or invocations that are sitting on ancient hedgerow and ice. Should your allies be willing to let you share in those. So you have a lot of ways to mitigate what may be coming at you, just so folks don't think that it's doomed from the start, because that's the impression that these are supposed to give, but there are mechanical ways of mitigating it. So I'm going to roll my dice, and you're going to roll yours, and we'll start with that.
Cool.
Good.
I might likely need to preemptively ask for one of those invocations off of ancient hedgerow.
I have a feeling that Lurin made that for them to be used. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's just a quick check-in. Like most times I assume that created aspects are like for everyone to use, but some people may have specific character reasons to not. I don't think Lurin does. Yeah.
Yeah, basically what Riina and Bazakhor are doing is using the hedges and things like that to obscure and to hide and
which is
the attack in that way.
Yeah, camouflage there.
Well,
okay. I have good news for you. I only rolled a 9.
Okay.
Hey.
Well, I have a 7.
Okay. So
that's not bad.
No, that's I mean, as such things go, that's really great.
Yeah.
Like you can just mark 2 stress boxes and be done with this entire sequence.
I'm gonna do that.
Or you can use a hedgerow if you want to negate it, right?
Yeah, totally.
I can use another one.
Well, so how many hedgerows did you use hedgerows on that roll?
Yeah, I used 1.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Okay, cool. So you used 1. Yeah. So the nice thing about invocations on created advantages is that you can use as many as you need to. Like if Lurin poured more power into the ancient hedgerow, like you would just get a stack of fate points on there that you can just use. It's only your own fate points that have to be spent on one aspect at a time.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's one of the other advantages of creating advantages. But yeah, if you want to use a second one on ancient hedgerow, you can negate it all, or you can just use 2 stress boxes because stress goes away at the end of a conflict.
Yeah, Riina takes the stress.
Wonderful. Cool. So mark 2 stress boxes off there and describe to us what happens. So you definitely get hit by this purple energy, but by using the hedgerow and your own massive ability, you hold it off. You are not utterly destroyed. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so Bazakhor, like very quickly seeing the energy, hunkers down and begins to sort of like sway in time with the way that the like wind is blowing these big hedges, beginning to like blend in and ducking around and between them, and almost sort of like taunting Soulcracker, that Soulcracker can't get a good solid hit in. That does still mean that Bazakhor takes some grazing shots, but generally tries to sort of just issues forth a deep and low and heavy sounding chuckle as the dwarven automaton is not able to find full purchase.
Nice.
Okay. As you do that, the destroyer is not able to do a whole lot. But there are these automatons below Bazakhor's, like beneath Bazakhor's notice, right? Like, what are they going to do? Well, the automatons in the zone that is right next to you, they begin to glow with a very sort of pure, sort of white light. And as you watch, their forms sort of disintegrate, and the energy off of them streams into the destroyers, both of them, both Rotbringer and Soulcracker. And the damage that you did to Rotbringer and Soulcracker seems to fade. So, Dwarven automatons have a condition called Sacrificial Automaton. Mark a box of this condition to expend some of the automaton's essence to heal one of its allies. Each box marked recovers 2 stress for an ally. The automatons in the zone with you in the battlefield are marking all 5 boxes.
Wow.
And are destroying themselves to heal all of the stress on Rotbringer, which looks hale and hearty and as if it had never rotted a bit, and all but 1 of the stress on Soulcracker.
Still on its ass, though, right?
Rotbringer's still on its ass, for sure. But now at the end of this exchange, there's only 1 party left to go. And that, actually, Soulcracker is gone. It's Rotbringer's turn.
Yep.
And here's the thing about being on your ass as an automaton. You don't have to be standing to use the condition Settle the Surface. So, something begins to happen to Rotbringer. It's on the ground, and Riina, you and Bazakhor sort of see this thing happening, and immediately, Riina, inside your tree, your mind goes, it's taking. You don't know what that means. Like, as a person in the world, you're not sure why that's the thing that came into your head, but that's exactly what you think. And what happens is that I will read the condition out for those who are watching. Settle the surface. Mark this condition to open a channel from Midgard to Svartalfheim, the homeworld of the dwarves. This immediately starts the flow of dwarven metal from that world into Midgard. This process shapes the metal into a massive set of protruding spires within which the dwarves can live. Marking this condition kills the dwarf piloting the destroyer as the destroyer's body is absorbed into the new settlement.
Wow.
So, Rotbringer's entire form begins to morph and twist and distort as fresh growth. And again, I'm doing this from Rina's perspective because it is almost plant-like. It's almost actual real organic growth, but it's not really. As this massive structure begins to spiral up into the sky, and in short order, Rotbringer is gone, and there is a multi-tined, multi-tiered obelisk of dwarven metal with protrusions coming out of it that sits on the battlefield where Rotbringer once was. That is the end of our first entire round in this conflict, and that seems like it might be a good time for a break.
I think so.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Excellent. I will flip us over to a break. We will be back in about 5 minutes. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you in a sec. All right, and we are back. It is time for our dear friend Tracy to continue wrecking our precious holdfast. So, without further ado.
Yeah, so before we left for the break that we had, the Dwarven Destroyer Rotbringer activated their Settle the Surface condition, which had them open a portal from Svartalfheim to Midgard and essentially summon a massive dwarven metal plinth into your realm of reality just outside of your holdfast. And as handoff initiative goes, they were the last ones to go, and so they are going to choose who to go next. And the being that they are going to choose to go next is their own dear and beloved Soulcracker. Now the thing about where Soulcracker is located in the situation of all these things is that Soulcracker is standing one zone outside, actually not even outside. Soulcracker is right there in the ancient hedgerow with a few different people in fact, all of the PCs.
Yeah.
And dwarves, as you may have gathered, and I think this is settling in for all of you to varying degrees. Dwarves don't seem to necessarily care about their own personal safety, because you haven't even seen an actual dwarf this entire time. You've seen the automatons and the constructs they're piloting. So I think there's this moment where Soulcracker like turns and looks to Riina and Bazakhor, and if the metal jaws could grin, they would. I think, in fact, one purple glowing eye winks out and opens back up again as Bazakhor, or as Soulcracker looks at Bazakhor, who is the obvious fucking threat in front of them, and instead turns their eye to Lauren.
Whoa.
Lauren, I'm not sure if you know, like, if you have an idea of why this Dwarven Destroyer has suddenly looked at you, or if it's something about your magic, if it's the way you rallied the holdfast. Whatever it is, there is a deliberateness to them lifting a foot up and simply bringing it down upon the space where you stand.
All right.
So, and in fact, this foot begins to flare with purple light as it comes down. This right here is me being a mean GM. I'm going to copy this right up front, because that same sort of move that happened in regards to Bazakhor is happening to you, except that the level of scale is totally different. So the attack is forceful. That's happening at a +4 because Dwarven Destroyer.
Mm-hmm.
It is adding to it another 2, 4 because of channel energy, for a total of +8 on the roll.
Oh man.
So I'm gonna roll my fate dice +8. With what approach are you defending, O seer, my seer?
I think he's gonna respond with focus. Like, I think he's gonna try and just, like, staring death in the face, he's just gonna kind of like tap the seer threads and just try and push back with instinct as much as anything else.
Okay, and here's the other thing. You are at human scale. This thing is at giant scale.
Yeah.
It is not going to take the +2 on the roll from that scale difference. it is instead going to assume that it will succeed and take the +4 on the back end.
Yeah.
So I'm rolling at a +8. If I succeed, I get another 4 shifts on this.
Oh man. Okay.
So as I say this, keep in mind you have 6 stress boxes.
Mm-hmm.
You have in peril, and you have doomed, plus you have fate points and lots of other aspects sitting out on the table. So this is a survivable thing for you.
Yeah.
It just might cost you a bit.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, I got 3 pluses.
Okay.
That's something.
So what's your total?
With focus, that's 5.
Okay. My total is 7.
That's not too bad.
It's not so bad. That is 2 shifts plus 4.
But if
because of the scale. If I succeed.
Right.
So we still have to negotiate whether or not I succeeded.
Yeah, I think that definitely gonna tap the hedgerow. Like, I think that's, possibly where Lurin is, like, trying to channel his energy.
Sure. So I have a very small pool of fate points for my bad guys. I get 1 for each of you. So I'm going to invoke Soulcracker's high concept of "you know my name" to balance that out.
Nice.
So right now we're back where we were, where you are. I'm exceeding you by 2 shifts, which equals 6 all told.
Yeah.
What else would you like to do? Because we can keep going back and forth until we actually resolve this. And
yeah.
I'll take the 1 fate point off of Ancient Hedgerow.
I think I'll use the other one off of Hedgerow as well.
Okay. I will.
Does that, like, destroy the Hedgerow itself, or just kind of?
No, that's the cool thing about Fate in general, right? The Hedgerow still exists fictionally. There's just no invocations on it.
Gotcha. Nice.
Yeah, so it still sticks around. I'm going to spend another fate point on Dwarven Onslaught, which is another aspect that Soulcracker has, which takes us back to where we were at the start.
Okay.
At this point in time, there are no more invocations on Hedgerow. The ice has been stepped over, and all we have left are any fate points that you might have in your own aspects.
Yeah, I think I only have 2 fate points left hanging out on my character.
Mm-hmm. I believe that's accurate. Yep.
I think he's newly come to the mantle of Seer and does not want to be squashed. I think that's
okay.
like he's just too cognizant of Aevilheimr's need to have a Seer right now.
Okay. I am not going to spend the last fate point that I have. So what that does is that takes us to a tie. Right? Which what that means is that Soulcracker gets a boost on you. Something that they'll be able to use next time, but you take no stress from this whatsoever. And I would love for you to describe how you, the newly minted Seer, who is massively self-conscious, who has an unhealing wound as the mark of the Seer, how you not just survive, but completely fend off a full-on onslaught from a Dwarven Destroyer.
I think, and let me know if I'm pushing what's doable with Seer magic.
You probably won't be. It's fine.
Okay. I think what happens is that he, like, tries to just straight up Brer Rabbit it and just, like, dives into the thickest part of the brambles, and they like close behind him and just, like, wrap him in, like, a cocoon of, like, the thick, knotty, like, hedgerow, like, root ball kind of structure.
Yeah. This feels like a real We Are Groot moment.
Yeah.
Right? So what I see is you doing that, you diving into this hedgerow that you, whether reality knows it or not, you brought this into existence, right? And the foot still comes crashing down, and root and branch and thorn just break and shudder and shatter in front of it. But as it goes and, like, it's like the anime thing of like layer upon layer of root and root and root and root and root, and then it sort of shudders to a stop, and it breaks the last layer, and that reveals you in your cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm gonna say that you are you're tangled. That's the boost it has on
Sure.
you, right? The thorns have your robes and whatnot, so it still can get like a little bit of an edge on you next time, but it lifts its foot away, thinking it would have crushed the life out of you, and you are still there.
Nice.
I think maybe, and you tell me if this is right, maybe for the first time, like grinning because you know your power worked. Like you brought it to the fore.
Yeah.
You were able to withstand what should have killed a person.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think so. I think in yeah, cool. I might play up something later, but yeah, I dig that.
Okay, that's awesome. So that is the top of this exchange, and I am going to choose to have. Let's see. I'm going to choose to have Riina go next.
Okay. So Riina just saw that and saw Lurin about to be smashed.
Mm-hmm.
And saw all of these new brambles, these like really heavy brambles all grow.
Mm-hmm.
And has an idea.
What's Rina's idea?
Rina's going to effectively attempt to flip the opposing Dwarven Destroyer, since it has just been smashing and has just picked up a foot and gone after trying to kill Lurin, putting its face right into all of those nice heavy brambles.
Okay. Is this a thing that you wish to have inflict stress upon it, or are you creating an advantage?
I think right now Riina is creating an advantage.
Okay, awesome. So cool. You are doing that. Let me check my destroyer's stuff here, and let me delete that. Okay, cool. Yeah. It is trying to react sort of quickly to this entire thing. That's not its strong suit. These things do not move with rapidity. So it's only going to roll at a +1.
Okay.
You two are evenly matched in scale. So it's trying to hastily avoid what you have going on. So go ahead and make your roll.
Yeah, Riina's using flair for this.
Nice. Okay. I have a net on the dice of +0, which means I get a 1 total.
I have a net on the dice of +0, which means I get a 3 total.
Okay. Awesome. So as it stands, that is a regular success. And you can totally place whatever aspect upon this destroyer that you want to. If you just want it to be a regular aspect with one invocation on it, that's where we are now. If you want to invoke one of your aspects, that will take you to success with a success with style, and give you 2 invocations, which may be able to better benefit your allies. So,
yeah, I think that Riina is going to invoke Lurin, her aspect about Lurin being her political connection.
Nice.
Since she needs this guy to be alive still.
Yeah.
To get to a success with style, and we will put the aspect of embarrassed on.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's rough.
Soul Cracker.
Okay, I'm gonna have to widen this thing. more than a little bit to have the destroyer be properly embarrassed, but and that I'm just gonna put a 2 next to that, so we know that there are 2 invocations on it.
Cool.
Rather than dragging the tokens over and so on and so forth.
Sure.
Cool. So you have now roundly embarrassed a Dwarven Destroyer. You think Soulcracker might be blushing? It's hard to tell. I mean, it's real. It's
like a blue blush.
Do dwarves blush? Does metal blush? I don't really know. But you have now to go next. You have Lurin, you have Ogetti, you have both pairs of the automatons.
I thought the one burned itself up, didn't it?
Oh, you're right. The one did burn itself up, so that automaton is done. You have the one automaton on the Skalded Hearth. You have the Skalds on the Skalded Hearth. And then there is still the lingering question of where's the Jarl in all of this. And just as a brief like bell chime meditation gong reminder, the traders with all of their non-Euclidean weapons have not been seen from during this entire time. So,
yeah, they're on the opposite side of the holdfast too.
They were anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I will ask you then, Riina, who goes next?
I think Riina will pass it to Ogetti.
All right.
So this Dwarven Destroyer is massively embarrassed in the ancient hedgerow. And you have a rune of ice.
I do.
What are you going to do with it?
I'm going to use the ice to basically freeze up its pointy bits.
Okay. Are you intending that to do harm to it, or are you wanting that to be an advantage for other people to use?
I want that to be an advantage for other people to use.
Okay. So this is going to actually be dead easy at this point in time because this thing is slowed down. Like, for whatever reason, like embarrassed is very difficult to read on a massive metal body. But it's not really moving. It's not really resisting a whole lot. So the normal difficulty would be a 2. I'm going to take it down to a 1 to negate the scale difference between you two.
Okay.
Right? So effectively, you're operating as the same scale on it with its difficulty being a 1.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So it's just going to roll. Let's see what approach it's going to roll to try and resist being iced up. I think at this point in time, it's going to have to roll its force because it can feel like its joints sort of shuddering shut. But it's going to roll +4. But it's an even up roll with you. It doesn't get anything extra on this. So what approach are you going to use?
To what?
What approach are you going to use?
I'm just going to use I'll just use focus.
Okay.
So I want to just kind of focus this right very specifically so it might not be able to use any abilities kind of thing. Just kind of freeze it up a little bit.
Sure thing.
I got 2 pluses.
I got plus plus minus minus, so I have a total of +4. What's your total?
So that gives me what? 2. What did I say? Focus. That's 4.
Okay, so we're tied. You as the aggressor get you win that. You get a boost on that.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a temporary aspect that can be used to like just sort of pass to somebody else. So like something like frostbitten.
Yeah.
And I think in this instance, it's not really worth you using one of your fate points or another invocation just to make a permanent. It'd be an even trade.
Right.
So you might as well get the temporary thing that somebody else can use.
Right.
So that leaves the automaton. It leaves the Skalded Hearth. It leaves Lurin, and that would be the end of this round. not accepting the potentiality of the traders coming into this conflict. So who goes next?
The skald.
The Skald of Karth?
Yep.
Okay, so they are almost 100% focused on the automatons themselves. They have been massing their magical power, and since you have sort of represented the Skalds in this, Ogetti, if you could roll at a +4, I would appreciate it. They are not... The automatons are not doing well in this instance, just so you are aware.
-3. So I've got 3 minuses.
Okay. What is the total at a +4? So +1?
Yes.
Okay. The Skalds have been using that same magic energy that we were describing before. So they actually ended up rolling a -3. Because I rolled plus or a plus minus on the dice, and they are again bad at resisting magical disruption,
Right.
which is what the Skalds are bringing into the field here. So that is a total of -3 with your +1.
Mm-hmm.
That is a total of 4 shifts of stress. That is not something that automatons can survive so well. So would you please describe how the Skalds take out this automaton?
They come up and they can see that it's going badly for the thing, and so they get more fired up, and as they rush in with their spears and their shields, and then they've got the power that's coming from the earth is just kind of dragging, and it's making it muddy, and so it can't move, and it just kind of all surrounds with the earth. It's just kind of like the earth is just trying to keep it in one point so they can all destroy it.
I also kind of feel like the moisture from that earth, the muddiness is kind of like rusting it right away.
Yeah.
So when the regular holdfast warriors come up and just hit it with like a club, like it just breaks big holes through it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Cool. So the automatons are effectively taken out of this entire thing, and the Skald of Karth is successfully defended.
Yes.
So that really only leaves one person who hasn't gone yet, and that would be Lurin.
Kill the automaton.
So
Automaton killer.
So you have a Dwarven Destroyer down in front of you, which somehow is embarrassed. Which I keep saying somehow, Adira. I'm really I still love that. That's the thing that it is. Like the dwarf is just ashamed of itself.
It's frozen and embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To give you an idea of what it would take to actually take this thing out. There are 2 scenarios here that I'll give you.
With a stick.
So none of its stress boxes are marked. It still has in peril and doomed left. So effectively you would have to do 17 shifts of stress to it to just flat take it out.
Right.
The other option is that any character in a Fate game, after its opposition rolls the dice, but before it rolls to defend, it can choose to concede the conflict. It gets taken out on its own terms.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, if you narrate what you're going to do, and I see a number of shifts that this embarrassed dwarf is like, shit, I don't want any of this, right? The dwarf can concede the conflict. It exits on its own terms, so it's not like maybe the most satisfying victory for you, but it's gone from the battlefield. So those are the 2 scenarios that exist that allow you to remove this dwarf and its destroyer from the conflict. So, with that in mind, and with the fact that on the battlefield you currently have just 1 fate point, 1 invocation on the ice, and 2 invocations on the dwarf being embarrassed because, hey, embarrassed dwarf. That gets
And
you
the boost.
And the boost, correct, thank you. That gets you a +8. if you burn all those at any point in time, at the front, at the back, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
So if you rolled plus all fours on the dice, like all pluses on the dice, that takes you to a 12. And then you have your own stuff. But then the dwarf has to roll as well. So that could take it up a little bit or down a little bit. So I ask you then, without knowing what the dwarf is going to roll or what it's going to do.
Right.
You do.
Well, here's the thing, is that Lurin has just, like, tapped his magic in the most, like, palpable way yet. Like, he has never done as much, as quickly, as effectively as he has just done over the last minute or so.
Yeah,
and now he's lying on the battlefield and, like, ensconced in the earth, basically. Like, I mean, like, the roots, like, dug him in.
Yeah.
And I think that he gets sort of a glimmer of something, just like a almost like a stray thought that he, like, latches onto. And I think that he doesn't know exactly what he's unleashing, but he is going to be in the place, basically, where Bronwyn fell on the battlefields.
Okay.
And he's going to do his stunt of Fate's Lost Children.
Okay. So, for those listening along at home, you are now spending down 1 point of your refresh, which what that means practically is you are getting rid of your last fate point.
Yes.
Because it's like it never existed. So, you now have the stunt of Fate's Lost Children. Would you please, for everyone at home, read what Fate's Lost Children does?
Sure. Once per session, you may spend a fate point and call upon Fate's Lost Children, the dishonored dead who tried to hide from their own destinies. You create an advantage with one invocation to represent these Draugr. If they attack, treat them as a single Draugr. If you do this in a manner that is visible, or if anyone discovers you, mark a box of mistrusted.
Okay. I'm going to bend the rules a little bit here, because technically, if you need to have the fate point available to do it. I
see that. Yeah, I didn't see that until I was reading the thing again.
But you're effectively sacrificing that fate point to have access to this. So in this moment, narratively, it just makes a lot of sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, are you just calling upon one of Fate's Lost Children? Are you just calling upon Bronwyn?
I think that's what's going on. I think Hell is offering Bronwyn as an avenue of vengeance, basically.
Okay, so given the narrative, like, structure that surrounds all of this, and the fact that you're giving your last refresh, you're out of fate points, and you're doing this thing, I want to ask you a question about what this looks like, and then I'm going to ask Ogetti a question, because this kind of feels like the wrap up of what we're doing tonight. This feels like that moment, right? This is a pretty big fucking thing. So here's my question to you, Lurin.
Mm-hmm.
When you summon the spirit of Bronwyn, who did not die the death that she should have died, a spirit who did not go on to Valhalla for one reason or another, what does it look like when Bronwyn comes back from the dead as a Draugr, who is, by the way, a physical manifestation of an unquiet spirit? We're not talking a ghost. We're talking about a zombie-like actual physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
What does it look like when Bronwyn destroys this Dwarven Destroyer? Like, up, straight up, down, wrecks it.
Oh, wow.
That's your question. Describe that, and then I have a question for Ogetti.
Okay. I think what happens is that Lurin feels the pull and, like, you know, like, just sort of, like, yanks at the thread, and you see Branwen's hand, like, shoot out of the earth. You know, like, human scale hand, but grab the toe of the Dwarven Destroyer and just shove like up, and it's this little tiny like human hand is enough to tip it back, and it just like falls back possibly into the hedgerow.
Yeah.
And then I think, I don't know, narratively either it can be that or Bronwyn can like fully rise and go on and wreak havoc as well. But
Bronwyn fully rises. Like,
yeah.
I'll give you that. Like, so that's the first bit. And then I'll flip this over to Riina real quick. What weapon does Bronwyn wield?
So I think Bronwyn is not wielding what looks like the sort of like traditional skalds, like they're like sort of shield wall sort of thing. I think Bronwyn has like come out of the ground with what looks like some sort of like long like flail like weapon, which on closer inspection is actually all of these different skaldic weapons hammered and smashed together and like interlinking each other.
Can I add a small detail to that?
Sure.
Does it carry the same green tinge as the weapons that the traders from the Desert Brand have been?
Of course it does, yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Fantastic. So at any flash, it looks like a traditional skaldic weapon, but if you look at it too close, your mind kind of slips around the edges.
Yeah, interesting.
So
yeah, it's this weapon that it looks like traditional skaldic weapon, but when you look at it closer, if you're able to focus, it's actually all these broken skaldic weapons sort of forged and smashed together.
Interesting.
Then,
so this to me is a very Hela in Thor Ragnarok moment, right? Like she flips the thing up and the Dwarven Destroyer goes tipping up into the air and onto its head. And she like breaks a piece off of her weapon and throws it through the leg and severs the leg. And then she breaks another piece off and throws it through the torso. And the entire time, Ogetti, she's walking toward you. And she's destroying this thing almost like without a thought. And she stops right in front of you, and the torso of this destroyer sort of crashes down next to you. And there's this little sliver of movement as the dwarf inside is trying to like climb out, even though it knows exposure to sunlight will just turn it to stone. And her what's left of this blade is in her right hand, and she shifts it to her left hand and just smashes down. And like everyone around knows that the dwarf has died. And Ogetti, Bronwyn looks at you. You can see the curse of hell upon her. Half of her looks mostly alive, and half of her looks mostly dead. And she says to you in a half alive, half dead voice, "Why did you let me die?" And if you want, we can call it there. It's okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
all right.
Then with that moment, that is where we'll call the session for tonight.
Ooh.
So
Awesome.
Yeah.
y'all's homework for the final session next week is we have to resolve the thing with Hell and the Jarl. We have to answer why Ogetti let Bronwyn die. We have to get Riina and Bazakhor some peace in all of this. Maybe that is meeting Rina's mother. We don't know yet. And I think for Lurin, you need to contend with what the fuck you just did.
Yeah.
So, because you just did a whole lot, my son.
Yeah. He's not going to feel good about that tomorrow.
Yeah. So I think those are the things that I think are personal agendas for each of you. Like, Lauren, you need to figure out how to contend with what you just did. You, like, whether you knew it or not, you fully accepted the mantle of the seer. Like, that's a thing. capital T thing that you did.
Yeah.
Ogetti, you are face to face with the person that you let die, and you had what you felt was a valid reason for doing so. You need to contend with the reality of that and accept it within yourself or not.
Okay.
To see that play out. And then Riina and Bazakhor, you've seen an emissary from hell that presages the return of your mother. I think you need to decide whether you want your mother to return or not. Because Rina's been very on brand so far, and you've seen a lot in the last few hours that may have affected that.
Yeah.
I'm not dictating which way it needs to go. I'm just saying think about it.
Reality.
Exactly. So, that's my part. Thanks for watching tonight, y'all.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that was super fun. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, and we will be back next week, same time, 5:30 Pacific on Thursday. And we'll wrap this up and kind of see if we can get all these threads tied together. So thank you once again, Tracy, for running. This has been super fun to play with these characters. And Donna and Adira, thank you so much for coming out. And for all of you in chat, thanks for hanging out tonight. And yeah, we will see you next week. Thanks so much.